Wind chimes made out of keys.
This is what the mushrooms look like in their raw state.
Mushrooms in a bowl.
Before they've been ground up into a powder. So in here is a powder. So I do that maybe once or twice a week for microdosing.
Mason jar of mushroom powder.
I really noticed after the first mushroom experience that it relieved
An older woman.
a lot of her fear of death.
Bare branches against an overcast sky. Hydro wires cross the screen. Yellow text appears, title card, How We Die. Black text underneath, the future of end of life. How We Die, this episode, The Good Trip. An older woman walks across a lawn. Jill approaches a house.
Jill is part of a caregiving circle for Andrea, who has terminal cancer.
Andrea answers the
We
door.
first met Andrea with her husband almost a year ago when she began planning for her death. Jill's a close friend who's been by Andrea's side and has been one of her pillars of support.
Jill.
Did you write a poem today?
Andrea.
Not yet.
Yeah.
They sit outside.
Sometimes the poems I write are really short, like just
Yeah.
a couple of lines.
This sucks.
I don't want to play anymore. But that's okay. They can be short.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's the way it is. That's the way energy shows up, or lack thereof.
Jill Davy.
I think that friends are a deeply important part of the end-of-life companionship and journey, because I think she knows that she doesn't have to take care of me. With family or something, you know, you're always like, don't want to be too much of a burden and don't want them to see how much you're suffering. And I think she knows that she can be whatever with me and I'm going to be okay.
Andrea is not only finding support through her family and friends, but is also making breakthroughs with psychedelic-assisted therapy. She's one of only 28 Canadians who were granted permission to legally use psilocybin, also known as magic mushrooms, to deal with end-of-life distress. A doctor and therapist oversee her psilocybin treatments.
Jill.
I would describe Andrea as a seeker. She's always trying to learn from whatever life is presenting.
Andrea Bird.
My friends and family know me pretty well, and they know that through this dying time, I've been doing whatever it takes. So when they heard that I was doing a guided psilocybin mushroom trip, everybody was, yeah, you go, if that helps you.
Andrea with mushroom tea.
What I learned from Andrea's experience is not to be afraid of it.
Jill.
It's an incredible tool to give insights into another way of seeing the nature of life, and which includes death.
Psilocybin is one of the naturally occurring compounds found in magic mushrooms. As a psychedelic, it's classified as a controlled substance and prohibited in Canada unless authorized. It's part of a group of psychoactive substances like LSD, ayahuasca, and MDMA that affect perception and cognitive processes.
Andrea.
This is the scale that I use to weigh out the amount, because microdosing is such a small
Weighs
amount.
the mushroom powder.
This is a scale that has like 3 decimal points to it. The large trips that I took, the 2 of them, you know, they were more like 4.5 grams. That gives you an idea of how much was in a large dose, so there's no psychedelic effect that comes along with microdosing.
Dr. Sean O'Sullivan.
The use of psychedelics at the end of life is because they facilitate a confrontation with death, which people who have terminal illness are going to have to confront anyway. They are non-specific amplifiers of psychic contents, and therefore those issues cannot fundamentally be avoided under a psychedelic therapy session. It's also an opportunity to make some meaning out of their lives, and psychedelics are very useful in assisting that.
Andrea.
Psychedelics, they have been found to be so incredibly helpful for people at end of life in terms of lowering the fear of death, or sometimes, in some cases, having it disappear altogether, which is no small thing. I had been prepared for difficult things to happen, but it was okay. I found the psilocybin to be a gentle teacher. In terms of just dealing with the psycho-spiritual changes and challenges that come up, other forms of therapy that I've sought and tried only goes so far.
Research has shown that psilocybin can produce substantial decreases in depression and anxiety in patients with life-threatening illness.
Andrea works in the garden.
Recent studies and medical trials have also suggested it may have the potential to treat a range of psychiatric and behavioral disorders under special monitored conditions.
O'Sullivan.
In the 1960s, when these medications burst on the scene, the people who were charged with regulating drugs and regulating therapies had no idea of what these compounds were or what they could do. So I think that the stigma has been applied by bad science for political reasons, and the stigma will be removed by good science and by people telling their stories about the benefits of psychedelics.
Jill.
Ask questions, read books, talk to other people, and not to do that on your own, but to find a guide and someone that really understands the ceremony and the medicine and the importance of intention and being clear and having proper supports with it.
Andrea.
Because it was such a helpful thing for me to do at end of life, part of the reason why I'm wanting to do this is to help break down that stigma and any judgments people might have about using what we see as like recreational or party drugs in a different context and how helpful they can be. It's a game changer.
Credits.